On February 2nd, 1959, 9 experienced hikers ventured into the frozen mountains of Russia. None of them would return alive. When rescuers finally found their bodies weeks later, what they discovered defied all explanation. Crushed ribs without external injuries, missing tongues, radiation on their clothes, and most disturbing of all, they had fled their tent half naked into the deadly cold. What could terrify experienced survivalists so much that freezing to death seemed like the better option? Welcome to my channel. I'm your guide through history's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Today, we're investigating what's known as the Dyatlov Pass Incident, a case so bizarre that even after 65 years, no theory can fully explain what happened on that frozen mountainside. The Russian government has reopened this case multiple times, each time reaching different conclusions, but the evidence speaks for itself. And what it says is terrifying. In January 1959, a group of 10 Soviet hikers prepared for an ambitious expedition. Their destination was Otorten, a mountain in the northern Ural Range. The trip was classified as Category 3, the most difficult level of Soviet mountaineering. But this wasn't a group of amateurs. They were experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. The team consisted of 8 men and 2 women, all in their early 20s except for one member, 37-year-old Alexander Zolotaryov. On January 27th, they began their journey by train, then truck, then finally on skis into the wilderness. One member, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back early due to illness. This decision would save his life. The group's plan was to reach Otorten and return by February 12th. Dyatlov had agreed to send a telegram to their sports club as soon as they returned. When February 12th came and went with no word, no one was immediately concerned. Delays were common in such expeditions. But when 6 more days passed in silence, the alarm was finally raised. A search party, including volunteers, police, and military, was dispatched on February 20th. What they would find would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The search began at the last known campsite, then followed the group's trail toward the mountain. On February 26th, they spotted something that made their blood run cold, a tent, but not an ordinary campsite. The tent was found on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, which translates to Dead Mountain in the local Mansi language. It had been cut open from the inside, long, deliberate slashes made by knives. And it was still partially standing, covered in snow, with all the hikers' belongings still inside: boots, warm clothes, food, everything they would need to survive. But the hikers themselves? Gone. Footprints led away from the tent down the slope toward the tree line. And here's where it gets strange. The footprints showed that most of the hikers were either barefoot or wearing only socks. Some wore a single boot. In negative 25 to 30 degrees Celsius in the middle of the night, running away from the safety of their shelter. The search team followed the footprints for over a kilometer, down to the edge of the forest. There, beneath a large cedar tree, they found the first 2 bodies. Yuri Krivognishenko and Yuri Dorvashenko. Both were wearing only underwear. Their hands showed signs of climbing. There were broken branches high up in the cedar tree, suggesting they had climbed it. But why? To see something? To escape something? Between the cedar tree and the tent, rescuers found 3 more bodies over the following days: Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. They were positioned as if trying to crawl back to the tent. All 3 had died from hypothermia, but Slobodin had a small skull fracture. Not severe enough to kill him, but certainly from some kind of impact. The remaining 4 bodies weren't found until May, when the snow began to melt. They were discovered in a ravine about 75 meters from the cedar tree, buried under 4 meters of snow. And this is where the mystery becomes truly disturbing. These four, Ludmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, and Alexander Zolotaryov, had suffered massive internal injuries. Dubinina had major chest fractures and was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. Zolotaryov and Thibault-Brignoles had severe skull damage and chest fractures. The medical examiner noted that the force required to cause these injuries was comparable to a car crash. Yet their bodies showed no external wounds, no bruising, no cuts. How does a person sustain massive internal trauma without any external damage? Even stranger, some of the clothing on these bodies was found to contain high levels of radiation. And oddly, some were wearing clothes taken from those who had died first. For over 6 decades, investigators, scientists, and amateur sleuths have proposed dozens of theories. Let's examine the most compelling ones. Theory 1. Avalanche. In 2019, Russian authorities officially concluded it was an avalanche. The hikers, hearing or feeling the snow shift, cut their way out and fled downhill. But this theory has major problems. First, the tense location wasn't steep enough for avalanches. Second, experienced hikers wouldn't run away from an avalanche. They'd try to dig out. Third, an avalanche doesn't explain the severe internal injuries or the missing tongue. Theory 2, infrasound. Some scientists suggest that wind flowing around the mountain created infrasound, low-frequency sound waves below human hearing range that can cause feelings of dread, panic, and even physical discomfort. This could explain why they fled in terror, but it doesn't explain the physical injuries or radiation. Theory 3, military testing. Several witnesses reported seeing strange orange spheres in the sky around that time. Some believe the hikers stumbled upon a secret Soviet military test, perhaps a rocket or weapon. The radiation on the clothes supports this. The government's initial secrecy supports this. But why would the military crush their ribs without leaving external marks? Theory 5. Paradoxical undressing. Hypothermia can cause paradoxical undressing. Victims feel hot and remove clothes before dying. This explains some of the clothing situation, but all 9 simultaneously experiencing this, and it doesn't explain the initial flight from the tent. Theory 6, the local tribe attack. The area was sacred to the indigenous Mansi people. Could they have attacked? But the Mansi had good relations with hikers, and they wouldn't explain the strange injuries or radiation. Theory 7, the Yeti. Yes, some have seriously proposed this. The local Mansi legends speak of the Menk, a wild man of the mountains. But let's be honest, there's zero evidence for this. Each theory explains some elements. None explains everything. And that's what makes Dyatlov Pass one of history's most enduring mysteries. In recent years, new scientific analysis has emerged. In 2021, a study published in a scientific journal used computer simulations to support a delayed avalanche theory, where the snow settled slowly and created pressure. But critics point out this still doesn't match the evidence. The radiation remains unexplained by any official theory. Yes, one of the hikers worked with radioactive materials, but the contamination patterns don't match occupational exposure. And why was it only on certain items of clothing? The missing soft tissues on Dubinina's face, tongue, eyes, lips, were initially attributed to scavenging by animals or decomposition in the water. But some forensic experts argue the precision of the removal suggests something else. What? They can't say. Here's what we know for certain. Something caused 9 experienced hikers to cut their way out of their tent and run into deadly cold without proper clothing. Something caused massive internal injuries to 4 of them without external trauma. And something introduced radiation to their belongings. In 2019, the case was reopened again. The official conclusion? Avalanche. But many, including family members of the victims and original investigators, remain unconvinced. The case technically remains open to new evidence. Could it have been a combination of events? Perhaps a military incident caused them to flee, then an avalanche caught some of them. Or perhaps something we haven't even considered yet. One surviving member of the search party said, if they ran from the tent, they were running from certain death. But what's worse than freezing? What would make freezing seem like the better option? The Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most thoroughly investigated yet unexplained mysteries in modern history. 9 young people, full of life and adventure, walked into the mountains and met something that defied explanation. Was it a natural disaster, a military accident, a combination of unfortunate events, or something we still don't understand about the physics of that frozen mountain? The truth is buried somewhere in that snow, along with the 9 hikers who never made it home. Until definitive evidence emerges, Dead Mountain will keep its secrets. What do you think happened that night? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you want more unsolved mysteries that will keep you up at night, subscribe and hit the notification bell.